Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! The following video will contain spoilers from the Flash mid-season finale episode, The Present. So if you don't want anything spoiled or ruined for you, stop watching now. Also, this video will contain language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised. If you don't want anything ruined or spoiled for you, and you don't want any bad language being heard, stop watching right now. Hey guys, Dave here. Okay. This is going to be a twofer video here. I've been thinking about the mid-season finale of The Flash, and there's a big double whammy that I want to discuss. That's why this video is about Iris and Savitar. See, if you haven't seen it, then I guess stop watching now, but if you have seen it, then we saw a glimpse of a possible future where Barry is confronting Savitar once again. Savitar has Iris, and Barry is not fast enough to save Iris from Savitar stabbing Iris in the back and killing her. Yes, this sucks, especially considering right now in Arrow we finally got Laurel back. So that's great, but what the hell's going on here? Anyway, Jay managed to snatch Barry back and let him know, look, the future is not set. Anything could happen. The best thing to do is to live for here and now. So I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. And it's also going to be setting the tone for what's going to be happening coming up in the rest of the season. Now, I asked a question on Twitter. I thought it was a very good one. If Iris were happen to die, how are fans going to react? Are they going to be as bad as they did with Laurel? See, personally, I think that Laurel, when she was killed, it was handled horribly, and I think it was a bad death. I mean, Eddie, when he died in season 1, that was a good death. I mean, it sucked, but that was something we could live with. It was something we could trust the writers with. It's just that with everything going on in Arrow, it could be shaking people's faith in what's going on in The Flash. And, well, I gotta tell you guys something. In my comic book history and knowledge, I happen to know something about Iris West. And in the comic books, she was killed, originally by Reverse Flash, by him vibrating his hand through her skull and essentially scrambling her brain, killing her instantly. Of course, he was vibrating invisibly at the time, and it was a big mystery in the comics at the time as who killed Iris West. It was thought there was some other guy that did it, but it wasn't. It was Reverse Flash. Eventually, the Flash not only finds out about this, but he goes after him. Now, years later in the comic books, Barry had moved on. He met a woman named Fiona, I don't remember her last name, and things are going well. Eventually, they were set to get married. Here comes Reverse Flash again. And what happens? Reverse Flash is going to kill him again. Barry loses his shit. So, in an act of desperation, to keep Reverse Flash from killing his second bride, he ran up, grabbed Reverse Flash, and snapped his frickin' neck. I'm not even kidding, man. And this was huge at the time. The Flash was kicked out of the Justice League, and he was put on trial for murder. Now, here's where it gets kooky. We later find out that during the trial, the ghost of the Reverse Flash is messing around and trying to influence the jury, is possessing one of the jurors. However, when Iris West died, here's where it gets absolutely weird. She was brought back to life by her true parents in the future. I forget the exact year. I don't remember if it's the 27th, 28th, 29th, or 30th century. But basically, Iris finds out that in the future there is a danger. I thought it was close to the crisis. I could be wrong about this. It's been a while. That was threatening them. So what they did was they sent their daughter back in time to be safe from it. And Iris was raised by the Wests. This is weird, but yes, basically Iris was a time traveler, and in the future they have the ability to retrieve one's essence, or life force, or soul, whatever you call them, and reconstitute it into a new body. Eventually she's sent back, and she kind of quantum leaps another juror to try to fight the influence of the Reverse Flash's ghost possessing another juror. I'm not even kidding. Eventually, though, she reveals herself to Barry. Barry's cool with it. After he is found not guilty, he ends up traveling to the future, reuniting with Iris, and they're prepared to live out the rest of their lives. This is when they finally have children, and they give birth to the Tornado Twins, Dawn and Dawn. See, Dawn, D-O-N boy, Dawn, D-A-W-N girl. It's weird as hell. I know this. So are they going to go this freaking weird with it? I mean, it's fucking bizarre. This is something born out of the Silver Age of comics that was high sci-fi and whatnot. So I'm not sure how absolutely fucking bonkers it's going to be. But it's going to be pretty bonkers. And they're going to try to figure out what's going on. So guys, no one wants Iris West to die. Everyone wants them to get back together. And that's great. But if it happens, don't worry about it. Iris West is destined to return from the supposed dead yet again, thanks to time travel. Now, because of this, they might be changing some things around, and the Flash has a couple other future bad guys, particularly one from the 64th century named Abracadabra. Could this be a way for them to try to bring Abracadabra in a later season, like season 4? Who knows? But the other half of this, Savitar. Now, Savitar was an interesting bad guy back at the original run. By this time, Barry was dead, and Wally had taken up the mantle of the Flash. And there were other speedsters, and people were starting to learn more and more about the Speed Force. But Savitar had such a command of the Speed Force that he could actually steal the speed from other speedsters. The only one he couldn't steal it from was Wally. And it was vicious, man. He actually had Lady Christina from, I believe, Blue Trinity or Red Trinity. She was a Russian-made speedster who she tried to defect. She tried to actually became... She was working with Vandal Savage for a while. She eventually became Lady Flash. But she just was too mentally broken. She eventually became an acolyte of Savitar. It was interesting watching Wally and Jesse Quick storming the compound, fighting ninjas, basically, that were given the Speed Force. So they were acolytes that Savitar was doing. Eventually, though, Savitar was defeated, and in the process, Wally learned more about how to actually steal speed and momentum and things from people, so he learned a greater control of it. Now, what's going on with Savitar in here? Now, I think all of us were equally shocked when we saw that Savitar was not some Middle Eastern guy who got his powers, flying a fast plane and got zapped into the Speed Force. No. They changed that from the comics. Apparently, he was the first speedster, and this took place thousands of years ago. So, naturally, he looks like he's from fucking Cybertron. Look, this is a problem. Everyone's been talking about, why the hell does he look like he's sucking Megatron's dick for Energon? Is that why he's tapping the Speed Force? He's trying to make Energon cubes, isn't he? Look, weird-ass shit aside about Savitar. He is on a level of speed that is significantly greater. Here's something else that's kind of weird, though. All the speedsters, apparently, tap into the same amount of the Speed Force. And supposedly, the more speedsters there are, despite the fact that Barry generates the Speed Force, there's only a certain amount that everyone can get. So, although there's a lot of speedsters, there's only a certain amount of power that they can all draw from. So the less speedsters there are, the greater a single speedster can become. It's quite interesting, actually. But, I digress. The Speed Force can be found to do some pretty miraculous stuff. And I think Savitar wasn't really transformed so much as I think what's happening is he's one of the first guys to not only figure out certain things about the Speed Force, but I think he also figured out how to manifest it as a solid construct. I think he's a guy in a suit of armor that is composed entirely of the Speed Force. In this case, let's call it speed metal. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, he probably thought at one point that nothing could be faster than something mechanical, and therefore he's mechanical. But people are talking about, okay, how's he going to be able to beat him? We know that Barry's going to be assembling an army of speedsters, so that's going to be one way. But I think once Savitar is defeated, he's holding the lion's share of a lot of Speed Force power. I mean, let's look at what Barry's going on. I mean, for the longest time, he was only running at about Mach 2, and then, you know, the other speedsters are going a little bit faster than that. Then he starts getting tachyons, he starts finally up to around Mach 8, and he gets pushed a little bit faster every time. But the crossover really kind of messed things up. I mean, okay, his top speed's around Mach 8, except for when he had to run across the entire country and tagging Dominators one at a time, along with Supergirl, to hit them with a pain blast? What? He even did this in a matter of minutes, if not seconds. So how frickin' fast was Barry? I don't fucking know. Anyway. Eventually, when Savitar is defeated, I think it's going to open up the keg and I have a lot more power released for a lot of speedsters. So they'll be able to pull off more stuff. More transcontinental runs and other things like that. Getting closer to light speed. But the big thing that Savitar's got going for him, if my theory is correct, is the solidified Speed Force armor that he's wearing, as well as the Speed Force dagger that he used to kill Iris. Why is this a big thing? Because people are also claiming right now that Barry right now needs a new suit. And I can understand this. It's time for a little change up, a little brighter reds, little changes here and there. Well, here's the funny thing, guys. In the comics, they later find out that the Speed Force can be wielded and actually create certain things like constructs. Yeah, kind of like the Green Lantern in that respect. Wally actually was really good at finding this stuff out. After he had like a broken leg, he actually was able to use solidified Speed Force to create a crutch or a brace for himself. When his suit was damaged, he actually created like a Speed Force suit, and even at times, when he needed more protection, a Speed Force armor. And technically, Barry already has done this. In Season 2, when he lost his powers and they tried to recreate the accident, Barry was burned up, and parts of his costume was essentially burned up. There were parts of it that were still remnant. So that was destroyed. But when he finally managed to reemerge from the Speed Force and he had his full powers, what happened? He had a brand new suit. Technically repaired, if not constructed and made out of the Speed Force, solidified. I don't think he's realized that yet. So that's something he did on a minor league style. And I think the way they're going here, they're going to be learning more about Savitar, and when it's time to get a new suit, he'll eventually have one that may be created out of solidified Speed Force. So what about the Flash ring? I still think it's a good idea, and I think he's going to probably use that as a crutch at first to try to like put his ring in it. So maybe they're going to try to, instead of doing the whole thing where the costume shrinks, puts in, and then when it's exposed to air, it expands again. I think they might try to do something more and more like where he turns into energy, and then the ring acts like a battery to contain it. So that could be an interesting way of going about it. At least that's what I'm thinking. So, what do you guys think about my theories about Iris West, as well as Savitar and the Speed Force? Please like, comment, subscribe, share. Let's get the discussion going on here. And I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things, guys. I know I'm still physically down. It's going to be a while before I'm back, but I got to hurry up and get back to being me, dude. I absolutely hate being this freaking down. I mean, I got back from dialysis. I had to take a nap today. Ugh. But I'm not knocking naps. I'm knocking the fact that I'm so freaking wiped out that I have to push myself. I know I'll get there eventually, but dang it, I just can't get there fast enough. Anyway, guys, thank you much for your love and support. Please, let's get a discussion going on Iris or Savitar and the Speed Force. And I look forward to hearing from you. Till next time, peace.